Associating with devotees. This is the best way to gain faith in the process of Krishna consciousness and become enthusiastic in devotional service. Conversely, maintaining intimate connections with non devotees slows one's spiritual progress. Try to visit the Hare Krishna Center nearest you as often as possible. Wherever you are, you can always associate with spirituality via books and other resources. Been sort of a Ronin, don't really fit in with organized religion, and people can tell that quickly. I find I've gone to some churches. There's a I've only felt welcomed in two so far: Pacific Zen Institute, and there's a church here in Sacramento. I think it's United of Sacramento or something like that. It's kind of a non-denominational church. Um, and even with both of those, I'm still a round peg trying to fit in a square hole. I enjoy both. Um, I've got a lot of value from both, but at the same time, I always feel like I'm a little bit on the outside. Just because it's hard because I wanted to go to SRF, sort of the Yogananda ones, and I've gone to a couple events, and same thing. I'm on the outside, and that one even had kind of a little bit of a cultish feel where they like one of us kind of stuff. So I've always struggled with that because I kind of find kind of how MMA fighters go to different gyms and gain some new experience and they move on to the next gym. I kind of view spirituality like that usually to grow, just like at work, you usually have to change jobs to get more growth, to try new things. And so I'm always kind of moving around, but I'm never really at home. I kind of built my own temple in my own house, kind of have my own puja table, and I'm happy to do my own practice in the house. But there is an element that I feel like it's a catalyst to go to Sangha, to go to community, because you're around other like-minded people. I've learned a few things from other people, and I'm sure vice versa. I think there's an exchange, and there's a reminder to you that there's other people like you, and there's this material world, especially in America, it's very corporatized and capitalist, where people aren't really focused on the spiritual element. People are focused more on, getting their career going. I don't like to feel like an imposter either when I'm at certain events or certain churches. I want to feel, I don't like that karmic element of half-hearted. If I want to be there, I want to 100% be there. I don't want to be there and there's a part of me that's not wholehearted. That's one thing I like about PZI, is that since it's Zoom, and since it's more of a smaller association, it's a smaller church in a way, that more individual attention, and also there's not so much of a demand for service. I kind of find a lot of churches want you to give up your time for free and work for the church and help the I get it, time, money, they got to keep the lights on, but that's my issue sometimes too, where there's strings attached. I don't like that karmic element. Practicing by yourself, I don't owe anyone anything. I don't owe anyone any money. I don't owe anyone my time. It's I can support. If I want to give money, it's on my terms. If I want to support somebody, versus there's kind of like an entitlement and there's a spiritual guilt. I don't like that with Sangha. So I kind of think that's the thing with the associating with devotees, with the community. I do believe it's necessary. I wouldn't be where I am without it. If I look back over the last 5, 6 years, there was a time when like PZI was like everything to me. And to some degree it still is. It's somewhere where I haven't attended in a long time, but I like the option to be able to attend if needed. And I like there's like a home for me. There's videos I can watch. I have the library. That's why I enjoy, like, for the $15 a month with them, I get not just access to the events if I want to go, but also I get access to articles and prior videos and all this stuff. It's kind of nice to have that option to jump in at any time. And from, remote, it's like work from home spirituality. PZI really got me into that. It was the first time I think I've done online events before in the past, but it was never like that where I felt like no one, there wasn't a thing of where people are noticing when you're not there. There's usually 100 or so people in the Sunday events, and no one's pressuring you to come, and no one really notices if you're there or not because it's just kind of a group of Ronins coming together. And if I think back, interestingly enough, my mother, who's like a devout Byzantine Eastern Christian Catholic, and my dad's an Irish staunch Catholic, and yet she brought me to Amar Archie's event. She's like the hugging saint from India, and my mom was friends, or she, or our cousin, she's friends with her, and she's kind of more into Eastern stuff. She has crystals and this and that, kind of more woo woo. I think that influenced her. But my mom, and my dad wasn't there, but my brother and I came, and I knew nothing of Hinduism. I was 10 years old, if that, maybe 9, 10, something. I was young. I was 10 years old, and I at that point in my life, I think the only churches I'd ever been to were Catholic churches, Christian churches, and Eastern Orthodox churches. I went to Greek Orthodox church. So anything I'd ever encountered up to that point was had a Christian basis. And I was in Catholic school as well. So I was constantly surrounded by Christianity. And my mom bringing me to this Hindu event, it was kind of shocking even at the time. I'm like, what? Like, it didn't even make sense to me. And even I think 2 or 3 years ago, I asked her about it finally because I was just curious. I'm like, do you remember why you brought me to the Amarachi, the hugging saint thing? And she didn't really have an answer. Oh, I don't know. It felt really weird. Felt like the universe, somehow I was exposed in a weird way to something. And it was outside of her because it was very unlike my family. They kind of look down upon other religions in a lot of ways. They don't have, I kind of have a different view, maybe because I'm different from them, where I kind of value people's moral integrity, regardless of religion. For me, it's as long as people's are living how they are portraying themselves, they're living by these morals that they're portraying, I'm fine with it. Versus, I think my parents are more of the type. My mom even says something like, "You're a Christian underneath it all." I'm like, I don't know about that, but she brought me to this Hindu event that's like so far outside of our normal lives, and she never had really an explanation for it. And I remember being there. I still remember it. It's a very vivid memory, oddly, because we were there and we had to like sit on the ground, and there's all these people, and we had to like walk up and give Archie a hug, right? That because she's a hugging saint. And I remember I walked up and I gave her a hug, and she was very happy, to hug me. It was kind of like, I think it was also because kids, and obviously we're not Indian, so it's kind of like I think there's a respect there, like, oh, like, some kids getting involved with spirituality. And it was not something that I should really remember. I'm 40 years old. It's 30 years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. And no words were exchanged. Just gave each other a hug, and then I think we might have nodded at each other, something like that, and went back because there was like a procession line. Each person would give her a hug. She kind of like move with you a little bit. And I looked her up, I think last year. I'm like, did that even happen? It's 30 fucking years ago. Like, did this even happen? And I looked her up, and I'm like, hugging saint. She looks a lot older, obviously, now, and I'm following her on Instagram, all that sort of stuff. But now, because it's very interesting that she's still around, and I looked into her, like, oh yeah, she does travel the world. She's the hugging saint. I didn't know she was a hugging saint at the time. I didn't know anything about her. Like, the internet back when I was 10 years old, it was like AOL, and we didn't have Google. I didn't know. I didn't research. I didn't know how to research. I was 9, 10 years old. So it's kind of funny. I was introduced to Hinduism way back when, and I that kind of brings me to a story about Ram Dass, thinking about it, like more community stuff. I remember, I was in an MBA program, and I think I was like atheist at the time, probably. And I guess me and a couple of friends in the program were talking about books we liked, and a friend said, "Oh, you should really read Be Here Now by Ram Dass." And I didn't know anything about Ram Dass at this time. So I'm zero spiritual interest at the time. So, but I read it because I respect his opinion. And it was a, interesting book. There was a good, the Be Here Now story in there stuck out to me. And then years later, when I was going through a divorce, I was watching Ram Dass on Netflix. And it's the documentary short film. It's like 30 minutes. It's called Ram Dass Going Home. And it really struck a chord with me. It's still on Netflix. I still watch it from time to time. I remember I showed it to my ex-wife, or we were kind of separated at the time, and she was like, "What is this?" Like she didn't get it at all. I barely got it either, but there was something in it. There was like that Eastern philosophy within it, and I still remember one of the lines in there where he says like Hanuman, who is like the servant of God essentially in the Hindu religion, he said something like, when I don't know who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you. Kind of talking about that oneness that we think we're separate, that duality. And so I was really enjoying it. I was watching it multiple times a week just to kind of keep it in my head. And there was chanting within this film, the Sita Ram, there's a guy singing it, and it was so beautiful to me. And I'm not much of a singer. I was forced to be in the choir as a child, but I hated it. But the song was so good, I kept looking it up and on YouTube. Then I found a rendition of it from the same guy singing in it in the video, which wasn't as good as the video, but I found Krishna Das through all that. And then I bought Krishna Das's book based on like an Amazon review that someone's like, if you're thinking about it, do it. And I started listening to his music, and then it became a daily practice. And so, why I'm bringing all this up is that community brought me to all this stuff. If I never was in that MBA program, there's probably no way I would have ever found out about Ram Dass, because I wasn't associated with any Hindu people or spirituality in that way. And if I wasn't involved with the community of the MBA in a way, and that's the thing about the community, they'll plant a seed in you sometimes, because that friend that said read Ram Dass, he planted that seed in me. And the time between I read Ram Dass's book and watching that film was at least 2 years. So it was because I'd read the book, when I saw the Ram Dass thing appear in Netflix, and otherwise, without that seed being planted, without reading the book, without having some introduction, I would have never turned it on. And I would have never had a chanting spiritual practice. I would have never probably found chanting. With it all led me to that. So that's the beauty of community in a way. You probably will discover something you weren't expecting. And I kind of find same with PZI. I remember someone asked me within the group, I think when I was first paying the $15, they asked me, "Oh, so how did you find out about PZI?" And I found out from PZI from reading Thich Nhat Hanh books. I got into kind of Zen Buddhism, and then I got a Lion's Roar magazine, and John Tarrant, who's like the head of PZI, had written an article I liked. And then I bought both his books, and I read one of his books, and I enjoyed it. And so then I went to his free Sunday service, and then that's how I got started there. So the community isn't just physical people. The community is books like the Hare Krishna Temple that I read at the start of this. There's you can access community not just from people. You can access community through videos, through books, through magazines, through other media, through podcasts. I found a lot through YouTube because the algorithm as well. Once you start following kind of spiritual stuff, the algorithm will kind of guide you to similar things. So the Sangha element is important. You can't, no man is an island. And, even with the Christian stuff, I found Thomas Merton. I was watching videos on Netflix and YouTube, and I found Thomas Merton through that, and I like his works. So I have lots of different influences. Mahatma Gandhi as well. I started getting into him. I've read a few books by him that really had a big effect on me, and I'll cover on the channel. Um, it's a seed that keeps growing. You keep sprouting these branches. And I think a lot of us too, when it's not the faith we grew up with, or we have a predisposition against it, you just don't have any idea about it. And I kind of feel like we push things away because we don't understand it, or we don't think we're gonna like it. And so I'm kind of always open to new experiences. I think I did a reading once. It's kind of woo woo to get a reading, like a spiritual reading. I got it for free, so I didn't mind. But I remember during that reading, she had said that, oh, my spiritual, like, kind of angels, spiritual team is always excited that I am willing to try new things, completely change direction. Because yeah, if I'm wrong, I'm willing to change direction. I think Gandhi says something like he's not committed to consistency, he's committed to the truth. And I agree with that. It's like you can't be committed to being consistent. I think Alan Watts says something like you're not required to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. And that always stuck with me because we have people around us, parents, friends, family, that they have a expectation of you. And so if you drastically change, it's very jarring for other people. Um, and often I find for myself in the past, at least, I not want to change completely. I kind of lead a double life because I don't want people jarred and people get upset, especially if your worldview differs from theirs, or it's such a drastic change they feel like they don't know you. So often I would find I'd keep my changes to myself, and I wouldn't be really living and being the authentic who I am. I'd be doing things I'm not 100% in agreement, kind of that half-hearted karma, versus just being who I am. And if people fall away, that's what it is. Even doing this channel, I didn't almost want to do it because, like, who really cares? And some of my friends will probably watch some of this and not, they don't know how I really am with stuff. So it's one of those things with the community as well. And it mentions that in the line here, where it says, conversely, maintaining intimate connections with non-devotees slows one's spiritual progress. I have an issue with this in one way because I remember Maharaji Ram Das's guru used to say there's like brahmachari kind of types where they only eat certain things. It has to be made by another brahmachari, kind of like priest system where you don't even touch something that was made by someone that isn't of that class, that kind of caste system. And I remember Maharaji was eating something that wasn't made by them, and they were crapping on him about it. And he was like, what if it was God himself in front of you, essentially, and you're not willing to eat it? And like Maharaji performed like miracles, and they wouldn't eat what he was making either. So it was kind of like showing their hypocrisy, kind of like a Jesus and the Pharisees sort of moment. And I've had a moment like that once too. I remember with my ex-wife, she had me over when we kind of reconciled. My son was there, and I kind of thought before, like, I know she's going to offer food. I'm like, do I even want to eat the food? Like, kind of the same idea. Like, I don't want anything by someone that's not following the same path that I'm following. Then I kind of remember that sort of like, that's crazy. Like, so there's a line in this, there's a paradox in that. It's like, yes, you shouldn't be associating intimate connections with non-devotees slows one's spiritual progress. So I view this as like if you have a bunch of drug addict friends and you're not a drug addict, you shouldn't be associating with them, right? You don't want it rubbing off on you. You don't want to give it a try, and before you know it, you're one of them. And I think there's science on that. Like you're the five people you spend the most time around, they start rubbing off on you. So there is an element of that. So I'll give the Hare Krishna group credit here, where it's like, yes, you should try to not have intimate connection with non-devotees. And I kind of view that as like I have a best friend. We've been knowing each other for like 20 plus years. And we're very different, but he's a good person. I don't know necessarily what faith he is. We don't really talk about that stuff, but he's a good person. So he's someone that I would feel like, even though maybe he's not a non-devotee, he's an honest, good person. He means well. He doesn't have a hidden agenda, and I'm willing to spend a lot of time around him. And same with my brother. He's not devoted to any spiritual practice. Just a kind of true blue atheist, maybe agnostic, but he's a good person. Tries to do the right thing. So there is an element of that the non-devotees will slow your spiritual progress. And I think conversely, going to these events and things, you'll meet people more like you. I think that's the thing. You're gonna meet people and learn from somebody. Because even in the small groups at PZI, when we would, at the retreat, online retreats, you're in a small group, you learn something from your fellow practitioners, you learn something from the question and answer with the teachers, right? I've learned a lot that way. And when it says the movement was started to give people in general the chance to associate with devotees of the Lord, that's the whole idea of the church. It's that you don't have to hunt these people out individually. There's a communal place where you kind of get to congregate, congregation. So it makes sense, from a practical standpoint, and that's kind of why I like practical spiritual chips. Why I'm even doing the channel. There's a lot of woo woo stuff, and I think Joe Rogan made a joke once where like the more the person looks like a wizard, the less you should get involved with it. So I'm always a little scared off to when there's like performative spirituality, and that's the problem too with these congregations. It has to get a little performative. You have to have the circus a little bit. You have to have the feeling that this is something. There has to be kind of these weird rituals that will appear to have the mass, quote unquote. Like even when I went to the SRF, I felt like I was in a Catholic church, but but it was Hindu. It had that same vibe to me with the pews, and we're sitting forward. And I kind of, even with SRF, I still attend, but I only go to, like, they have like movie nights or events. I kind of find with a lot of Hindu temples, I don't find myself just going consistently because of the karma thing. I go when it's an event I enjoyed. I did a meditation with them, which was decent, but I had brought in a Zen kind of koan book, and the leader of the group, I could tell, wasn't in love with that. Him seeing me not doing the same exact practice they were doing. I could tell he didn't say anything, but I got that look. So that kind of turned me off a little bit. It's hard to be accepted when you don't fall into a spiritual box where you're not like, I am X, I am a Christian, I am this. I remember, I think Ananda Mai Ma said something like that too, where she was like, where Ananda Mai Ma said, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Islam, I'm this, I'm that, like, I'm whatever you want me to be, right? It's because it's all kind of past the same thing. And people, in theory, like that when you want to convert to what they have. It's a weird thing. It's like they don't necessarily like that you like something else. Even my own family, I haven't talked about my kind of spiritual beliefs, but I realized my mother and father actually must know, because I did put up a icon on my Facebook that's Hindu based. And I remember when I was home once, they said, "What are you, a Hindu?" Because I had like a mark on my head from a hat I was wearing. And then because my dad said that, I immediately started thinking, was it the mark on my head? Like, is it some weird spiritual thing that the universe is saying? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. This has to be something. I just started thinking, how could he possibly know what I am in a way? And then I realized, the Facebook, his sister, my aunt, is on Facebook, as well as his brother, even though they're not. So I'm sure it's been communicated. I'm like, okay. So it's kind of, but they've never directly talked to me about it, right? Because it's like a weird, they don't, it's not something they even want to broach the subject with in a weird way. and vice versa. I don't want to cause them a problem by talking about because they're so staunch in their religion. I'm not even really truly a Hindu. I just kind of I'm like I joke I'm like a wannabe. I'm a fake Hindu. I'm like a it's just kind of I think Krishna Das said something like he's half Hindu, a quarter Buddhist, and a quarter atheist or something like that. And like I like laughed when he said that because that's how I view myself too. I'm not even like a true blue anything. And so I kind of feel like the communities that can be the problem is find that community that even if you fit in a clean box, it's really easy for when I was just a true blue Buddhist, it was really easy just to go to PZI and I could do other things on the side. And then when I really wasn't one anymore, I still kind of remember the moment that I kind of had to stop. I realized that was like the Dalai Lama had a incident, a scandal where there was like a little Indian boy and they were sitting and then he like stuck his tongue out on him and joked, "Oh, you sucked my tongue." Like this was in front of everyone, like it was like a joke. Like he or at least he was trying to make it sound like a joke. And he said something like when he got confronted, there's a big scandal. I think it was like 2, 3 years ago, and he was like, "Oh no, that's in our culture, that's a joke or something." Like, but he's older, and I worked with I've worked in retirement communities where especially the men, they lose their filter when they get laid. They lose control. They're getting kind of senile and they start acting out. When if maybe they had these weird feelings, like, it was at least hidden before. And I kind of noticed when I was working with the old people, they start losing it and they start losing those guardrails that from for bad behavior. So it's not that like he was a PDF file this entire time. It just might I've seen kind of that stuff, but it did like shock me to my core. I like didn't want to believe it at first. Like, oh my God, like, but it just showed me how human these people are, these gurus or whatever. You can't just you can't put anyone on a pedestal above you. And I remember when there was stuff in the Catholic Church where the priests were doing stuff with the kids, and my parents, they're such Christians and Catholics, especially the Catholics, like they don't really want to talk about it. It's really upsetting. And I saw myself in them. I saw them in myself when I had this happen. Like at first I didn't want to believe it, kind of threw me for a loop. Like I was so devoted as a Buddhist and then this happened. And I was already kind of like having questions on the whole thing. And then when that happened, it just proved to me yet again that organized religion, we're all human at the end of the day. And I remember my friend he said something to me too when I was talking about I was going to write a book. I'm not doing so anymore. I'm doing the channel instead, and maybe I'll write a book someday. But he said something like, "Oh, are you going to be like one of those like guru types that you're going to try to like build something and get money from everybody?" Like I'm like, no, I have nothing to sell anyone really. Like I think Ram Dass talked about that when he wrote "Be Here Now" kind of thing that he wanted to make it affordable, and his father was like no, why would you make it affordable? Like, make some money from all this. You're putting so much work in. And he said, there's a story where it was like, well, Dad, didn't you help out, Uncle Joe with his business? Like, his father was a lawyer, and like, you had a big case. Like, oh yeah, that was a big case. And then he was like, well, Dad didn't like how much you charge. You must have charged Uncle Joe a ton of money. He's like, no, that's Uncle Joe. Like, why would I charge him? I did it for free. And he said, well, Ram Dass says, well, tell me to me, who isn't Uncle Joe to me? Everyone is Uncle Joe. I can't rip Uncle Joe off, and everyone is Uncle Joe to me. So that's kind of how I view this too, where it's like I have nothing to sell, nor will I ever. So it's kind of like I'm not in it for that. I don't, keep the lights on. It'd be nice to do this full time where I don't have to have a real job. So but even then, I don't want that karma of the money of, you know, I don't want people sending me money or something. I don't want that element. I don't want the accusation that I ever took money from somebody, right? I don't want to and I've seen that when I worked in that retirement home too. I would see people like workers especially that in the will they'd leave like a CNA type like $100,000 and the family would be so upset because they kind of felt like their father and mother was like old and kind of losing it and they get conned into that or even I've seen situations where these old people would give like 20, 40,000 dollars to somebody because they were so lonely and this person was spending time with them and you know I was just always shocked by that because it's like yeah, you didn't steal the money necessarily. You didn't put a gun to someone's head, but it came to you in a not right way. So that's kind of how I view this. It's like I do get a little off put when I see like lots of money changing hands for spirituality. And even for me, like the Zen koans, I have them on my playlist on the channel from Peter Coyote. I like that it's free. I'm maybe I would have never paid if those were behind a paywall on Patreon or something. So even my content, I would never have a paywall on my content. I'm not here to make money, and hold me to this if I was ever to do it. I don't think I ever would. Obviously for a book, I have to like it's going to cost me money. So, and that's kind of why I'm not doing a book right now. I was paying for a service to like do my book, and I realized I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna have to charge for this stuff, and doing the content like I'm doing now is completely free, it's just my time, really, and I enjoy doing it. And it's content. I think meditations, Marcus Aurelius, the book Meditations I've talked about on the channel, this was his journal, his personal journal. He never meant to make it into like a book. We're reading someone's personal thoughts to himself. And that's kind of how my channel is really. Like I have no real subscribers. I think I have 5 subscribers right now, and they're all friends. No, I don't have an organic subscriber. No one's listening essentially. That doesn't know me. So it's like I I don't mind that because it just this is my spiritual journal to myself in a way. And hopefully someone can gain something from it. I'm gaining something from it, re-listening to it, and even right now it kind of helps me crystallize some of the information. um and that's the thing with Sangha. I kind of, even how I'm doing this is I need to commit to that. People have given me a lot for free or very small amounts. Like Ram Dass has done that for me. I've read The Be Here Now. He made it cheap. I didn't have much money at the time when I bought that. Netflix, it wasn't much to watch his documentary there. And I'm paying like YouTube Premium so I can get Krishna Das and others, like to have that spirituality on my phone. It's and so I kind of view like this is my way to give back as well. And I kind of feel like creation is better than consumer if you have something to produce. I think like we're also consumerists. We should also create. I read a book about that with depression too. One of the ways out of depression is to create, and so because depression is kind of destruction. So I kind of interesting line in here is this is the this is the best way. The quote is from the Hare Krishna temple. This is the best way to gain faith in the process of Krishna consciousness and become enthusiastic in devotional service. So that's interesting here. You gain more faith being around other people. It is kind of true because you're around other people and that kind of motivates you more. You see someone else that's, you respect. That happened to me once too. I attended like a Christian game night thing, and it's one of the most poignant moments. I forgot about this till now. I remember I went and he had like a family. His wife was there, and I didn't know any of them. I'm invited to their home, which is nice enough, and they treated me like family, and it was like at that point, I've been doing a spiritual practice, but I just felt like not even jealousy. It was more like sadness because I felt like him and his family were better people than me. I saw the light in them. I have light, but I also have some darkness as well. And I didn't sense that same darkness in them. And it made me, on the drive home, I rarely cry. And I was like kind of crying on the way home. Like it was like I saw how good they were and how like I wasn't, I've been doing all these spiritual practices, but I had that weight of that darkness within me, and I didn't get that feeling from them, and they had that purity about them that I wish I had in a way, and but I wasn't upset about it, but it was kind of like a moment where it was like, it was like this line says, the best way to gain faith in the process and become enthusiastic in devotional service. I saw, they're very involved with the church. Even post he was messaging me like, "Oh, you're gonna come to this," and but the problem is I'm not a true blue Christian, so I didn't want the karma. I wanted to be involved, but I could see like my views on things wouldn't fly, so I kind of had to get out. But it was a good experience just to see somebody somebody that outside my own spiritual beliefs was doing better than me. And it's funny too, like I had another situation similar to this where it was like a friend of mine, that he was married, had a kid or whatever, and we were spending some time together hanging out, and like, I was recently divorced. I think I'd been divorced a year or two, and he knew I was divorced, and I knew he had a happy marriage, etc. So it was kind of like, we're just hanging out, and like I remember again, I'm not a crier, and I went home and I was kind of just like crying at night, like, man, like he has this perfect life that I wish I had in a way. Like, he's married, has a kid, everything's good, have like kind of a broken family. And so it was like at that point too that really, like bothered me, right? Like, it's to see someone else, like, you start assessing yourself, like maybe I could have done more. Like, I created I'm part of the problem, the broken family. Look at this guy, he's got everything going for him. But then, he went and out like the next day again. And like I almost like canceled. I'm like, man, like I don't really want to like put myself through that, because I was like, feeling kind of all of that. But I'm like, it's not his fault that I feel this way. Like, let's put it aside. Let me go hang out with him again. It's fine, right? Like, he's got the perfect life and I don't, and it's fine. And so we hang out, but then when we were hanging out, now it comes out that like, oh, well, actually, I'm not happy in my marriage generally. Like, I'm kind of just, it's performative, right? So it was like, I don't know what happened the first day. Maybe he didn't want to dump that on me the first day, just kind of wanted to keep things lighter. But it was like the truth came out the next day, and I wasn't relieved or anything. I was just kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, people kind of put on a face sometimes, or they don't want to burden you. But I guess he felt a lot of people do that with my whole life. People even randomly will open up to me, like, I was on a Greyhound bus and I was talking about some deep trauma. Like, I attract that. No, I think I have a kind of a kind presence, so people can tell I'm not going to repeat it, sort of thing. As I'm not giving names here, so obviously I'm not giving that away. But and it was kind of crazy that it was like, you know it's kind of same as the Christian guy, where it was like, I'm feeling some kind of way, but maybe I don't know the whole story. Maybe there's a lot of performatives, because obviously that other guy didn't know very well. This guy had known for years, so he felt more open. Maybe the other guy, things aren't as good as it appeared, but it was like, I kind of wear my heart in my sleeve. I'm a little too honest, I think, sometimes. And I kind of take things as face value more than other people in a way. Like, I don't put on those performative masks as much. And I do like the final line: wherever you are, you can always associate with spirituality via books and other media. It is true. It's like, you don't have to feel like you're locked out of a spiritual practice. I felt like that for many years, where I don't fit I don't fit with the group dynamic sometimes because my views. And I remember even at PZI one time, one of the teachers was talking about someone that came to her talking about star seed stuff. And she's like, okay, like, she's kind of insulting in the story she was telling us, that's kind of crazy, basically, she was saying. And I'm like, shit, well, that's kind of the stuff I think. And I had a lot of respect for up until that moment. Not that I don't anymore. But I lost a little bit. I'm like, oh, like, I keep forgetting that even though they're a little more open, the Zen tradition is a little more open. There is kind of like that view that anything outside yourself, that your beliefs, it's kind of outside the dogma of your current religion. It's kind of frowned upon or looked as stupid or not as good, right? So it was kind of a reminder to me that even with PZI, they're great, but there is, people have their biases, and I'm sure, I have my own biases too. I still remember, Jordan Peterson she was being interviewed by a Muslim group. And I remember the interviewer asked her a very poignant question. He said something of like, would you convert to Islam if, without a shadow of doubt, it was like proven to you it was the right path? And then Jordan Peterson was like, no, never. Like, I would, I'm just a Christian. Like, I would always stay a Christian. And it was like, I don't think Jordan Peterson realized what the question was saying. And I understood, and I think most of the audience got it, where it was like, you're not any different than a typical Christian. Like, the guy was testing you to see if you're a little bit more like me, where it's like, how firmly are you believing just to believe, right? It's like, And I mean, obviously, it's like not, that guy. I'm sure would probably give the same answer that he would stay in Islam regardless. But I thought that always stuck with me all these years because it proved kind of my point where people have this great spirituality, but they aren't willing to say that they were wrong and do something else. For years, I was an atheist, so I can speak to this. And I think James Baldwin says, never speak from anything that isn't your experience, only speak from experience. So I try to do that. It's I can speak from experience. Anyone that knew me all my life, I was like a hardcore atheist. So for me to get into spirituality is like such a drastic change. So, but I'm willing. I even think I said that to my ex-wife, like, yeah, I was wrong on things with spirituality, right? And it's like, and she was kind of more agnostic atheist as well, and she's now into spirituality too. So she kind of, I think, understands that. So it's kind of like I'm unlike Jordan Peterson. If I'm wrong, even what I'm doing now, if I'm the practice is, I'm always willing to change my practice if something isn't working. I'm not so like I must be a Hindu, I must be Zen. I'm even kind of a Gnostic Christian kind of demiurge sort of stuff. I've been introduced to that, which kind of goes with what my thought process. So I'm always kind of, you know, using religion as a tool. It's a kind of using like a step ladder. Use what the I'm gonna place a step on the step ladder to go higher. I don't really care what it looks like. If it looks like a jigsaw puzzle, if it looks, one step is blue and the other's red. Like I don't care. One looks shaggy and the other doesn't. Like, whatever moves me forward, that moves me up the mountain, I'm willing to use that. And I think a lot of people like Jordan Peterson in that interview, it's like he only wants to use the Christian path to get to the top of the mountain. And I kind of find, just like jobs, they say you're supposed to lead 1 to 2 years to gain new experience, get the big promo. It's kind of the same with spirituality. The more you stay with just one thing, I feel like the path meanders. It takes longer versus on a mountain, like you get to like bushwhack, make your own path that's actually faster. It's like shortcutting. You take the Christian path, bushwhack over to Hinduism, bushwhack back. Like you can transverse the a little faster, I think, if you're not unwilling to try something new. I think the Tao, the Tao Te Ching says something like the, you know, the path is not difficult for those who have no preferences. And and it's true. It's like the less you're tied to your belief system, the more you can be willing to try something new and get to things faster. For me, with that line, that line that bothers me of conversely maintaining intimate connections with non-devotees slows one's spiritual progress. I kind of take that as if people can't accept you as you are too. It's kind of like I've been if people get weird about that I don't want to drink alcohol, do drugs, or if I don't want to, you know, gamble or I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like a huge problem for them. Then I have to kind of dump them off if it's going to be like a constant battle with people. But I kind of find as you get older, it's not like you're 20 years old or in high school. The peer pressure as you get older doesn't exist. But I do find it can be isolating. Like people can, if you have kind of a stricter spiritual pack, you don't do certain things, it off puts people. I especially find with like the not drinking alcohol can throw people off because it's like people feel like sometimes that you think you're better than them or they want like an explanation. I kind of find when I don't drink alcohol, I don't think I've had a drink in 4 years. I never was much of a drinker, but like I rarely drink but now I just don't, just as a spiritual practice. I don't really want to do any intoxicants. And people always act weird. Like I remember I had a boss recently where it was like they're trying to give me a bottle of wine. It was like free. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. And they're like, no, come on, just like give it to someone else to bring to someone else's house, like take it home. Like we need to get rid of it. I'm like, no, I don't want it. And I remember he couldn't even resist. Like, did you have like a drinking problem or something? Like, what? Like, because it was like so odd that I didn't even want it in the house. And I was like, no, I just, I don't drink. I don't, and I'm not gonna bring it. So, it's better for it to go somewhere else. But it bothered him a lot, and I kind of learned that from. I had a Muslim friend. She would like, they're not allowed alcohol. They don't like accept the gift, right? You don't even want it in your house. And for me too, part of the reason I didn't accept it, I do have a special needs son and I didn't want something to like CPS comes in and sees I have a bunch of bottle of wine in the cupboard. So I have read that like if something was ever to happen, that they'll like assess your house and they'll look for stuff like that, look for kind of alcoholism, look for. So I want like zero, absolute zero chance of them trying to say I'm a drinker, especially because I don't freaking drink. So I don't even want like a drop of alcohol in the house just for that reason as well. So I didn't want to get into that with the boss, but people get weird. I try if I'm at an event, just get like something that looks like a drink, get like sparkling water, have them put ice in it, have them put, like a lemon thing in it. So it looks like a vodka on the rocks kind of thing or something like that, or a mixed drink. So I try at least like mask it because I realize people, when you're associating with other people, sometimes it's like you don't want to like be unlikable or, stand out too much where they start looking at themselves in the mirror. Because I started to realize that when you're unwilling to do something that's kind of a standard practice, um, people react negatively because it's kind of like the same thing. If you eat really healthy and someone's just a fast food addict and they're overweight and they see how healthy you eat, that can upset them. It's like you're upsetting them. Your purity can upset their demons sometimes. So I kind of find, this line about it can slow your spiritual progress because you're having to fight people or like deal with this element with versus being around other people with like a similar mindset. And I think Ananda Maima, even for food, she says like don't cook with onions and garlic and spice like very hot peppers, all this stuff. Like don't, kind of keep your food more plain so you're not so worldly. And I remember I was looking in Las Vegas for a temple that had food and they do their cooking like that like once a week. And I was good. See, I like that. Like I want that food. So everything always has onion and garlic in it. It's like it's kind of like I enjoy being around people similar to you because then you don't have to explain yourself, and there's not this like social pressure. You're not offending anyone. And I kind of feel like you don't want to shove religion or spirituality down people's throats. So I don't really want to reveal my spiritual beliefs unnecessarily to people. So it's kind of nice when you're around devotees versus non-devotees because you can just be yourself a little more versus, you know, people can react negatively to you. Like, or people, it's not even negative. I had a friend recently, I told him I was not, I'm giving up poker, and he was like, "Well, can you at least just like stake me or like for this or that and that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want the dopamine. I don't want to be involved at all." He understood. He wasn't a jerk about it. Why we're still friends, but some people won't react like that if they're really into something and you're not into it anymore. People don't want to be around you because you're not like one of them. You're not one of us, one of us. So I kind of in religion, I kind of find can be the same thing. If you're in a group and people find you're not like a wholehearted Christian and you're part of a Christian group. So that's been my issue with religion too. It's hard to be part of a Sangha community because there is an expectation, I believe, that you are aligned. And I get it from a practical sense. You can't have all these Ronins and people that with different beliefs around. You kind of want your group of devotees, your congregation to be moving in one direction. And so I kind of find I do best with like Zen, Hindu, or like universalist kind of Christian based churches because they kind of have more of that open view. But even there, I kind of find there is, expectations or, I kind of find tone not keeping my thoughts to myself more on spirituality because people don't really want to hear it. So it's yeah, it's tough. But I have a lot of respect for the orgs, and that's kind of how I work around it is just by kind of like buffeting it, taking I think it's that same Islamic woman said that to me when I was talking about, I think they do, I forget what it's called, where they fast for like a month. And I was like, oh, maybe I like should do something similar in my practice where I should do like give up something, kind of like the Lent thing in Christianity is similar to for I think Ramadan. And and she was like, "Oh, you're just like kind of just taking what you like from each religion." And I'm like, "I guess I kind of do that." She kind of called me out for that, but I do find like when you're at a buffet, I want a little of this, I want a little of that. Like I want more of this, I want less of that. I might try something not like it. I think the buffeting of a religion you can make a plate that fits you. And for me, it's split among all these things. Like I never thought I'd be a Gnostic Christian. Gnosis, it's not agnosticism. Google it. My plate keeps getting a little bigger where I always kind of thought, first it kind of started with nothing, and then it was all Zen Buddhism over it, and then some Hinduism start coming in, and now the Zen's the smallest in Hinduism, and I got Gnostic Christianity, and maybe more will come in or some will leave. um and that's the thing. I kind of feel like you have to custom fit. It's like shoes. You have to like find the shoe that fits your foot, and sometimes it's like only a certain brand and a certain size fits, but they make a new model and it doesn't fit anymore. You have to go find a new shoe. It's kind of one of those things. It's like I think you don't want to fall asleep at the wheel on spiritual practice, especially when it comes to community. If it's not working for you anymore, try something else. You don't have to stay at that church because you've been in that church for 20 years. You can go somewhere else, or you can, in your don't you can come back too. You can prodigal son it. So, I just kind of feel like Sangha can be complicated for people. It's not, I think it can be oversimplified. Like, oh yeah, just find your spiritual group. I think in the time before the internet and the time before so much being out there, it was easier just to, you be part of your local church. Now there's so many organizations, and there is, and you have to watch out with the guru element where you see these church pastors stealing from the congregation, they're embezzling money, and you know or you have like sexual misconduct. Like you kind of have to be very wary of groups, and that's kind of why I keep a distance. I think even though I'm involved with certain groups, I kind of keep Sangha a little bit at arm's length, because I kind of feel like you really have to vet before you're really 100% in. And I think that can be a problem for people, especially people that have seen the other side of spirituality, of this sort of stuff. And that's the thing. It doesn't mean you have to love everything about the org. You just choose what you want to go to. But obviously, I've even felt that when people see me show up, I'm only showing up to certain events, or I'm not there that often. People be, oh, long time no see, or like you feel kind of an awkwardness because you're kind of like a fair weather Christian, as they used to call it when I was a kid, where it's like people are only showing up on Christmas and Easter, but they're not showing up the rest of the year. And my parents were there every Sunday. So it's like, oh, all these people coming in, filling up the church on the holiday, they get all mad, right? It's kind of, so I am kind of one of those fair weather. You know what? I shouldn't rename this video Fair Weather Hindu, Fair Weather Buddhist. It's kind of like true, but I kind of get it. Yeah. I mean, if it's not, you're doing a spiritual practice outside of those moments, but you still want to experience those moments. Like I do enjoy the movie nights at SRF. They usually play something from like Ananda Ma or something similar, or they'll have talks and stuff. And same with, PZI, and same with other groups. But yeah, it's tough because it's we're still all human, and fitting into those boxes can be a problem. So